Welcome into Fantasy Baseball today on Thursday, August 22nd. I am Frank Stampfl, joined by Scott White and Chris Towers. Today on the show, Justin Verlander is back. I've got some buy or sell scenarios. The Reds had 4 socks and shoes as a team. I don't remember ever seeing that. I'm sure it's happened.
Honestly, doesn't sound like enough for a 25-man roster.
Right. They're running out there barefoot. What is this?
I know it's a small market, but come on.
Yeah, it's tough times, Chris. Tough times.
Clothe the players, honestly.
Do want to thank everyone for being here. This is far and away our latest start of the season. Some technical difficulties, weird stuff going on behind the scenes, but we are here. We are ready to talk baseball. Let's jump in.
Oh my goodness gracious!
All right, and we will start with Scott, your player of the night.
Matt Waldron. I wrote about Matt Waldron for the most recent weekend stock watch that came out this past Monday. And I pretty much stuck a fork in him then because it had been real bad for a long while for our old buddy Matt Waldron. He had, over a span of 9 starts, a 5.88 ERA. And the odds are against a knuckleballer finding success anyway. There's a reason there are hardly any out there, and there's a reason that the ones that have come along during my 25 years playing fantasy baseball have generally not been very good for fantasy. It's a mercurial pitch. And it has to work, or else the pitcher just has nothing. And I thought maybe Waldron could buck the trend because he's a rare knuckleballer who actually can get his fastball up to 90 miles per hour. So that gave me hope when he was succeeding earlier in the season. But things have only gotten worse here because this start on Wednesday for Matt Waldron was just an out-and-out disaster. 10 earned runs in 4 1/3 innings, 12 hits. That was against the Twins. Yeah, I stick a fork in him. He's not of interest anymore, I think, is all I really need to say.
Yeah, I'm doing a drop-o-meter for the newsletter on Thursday morning, so Wednesday night, and Waldron's on there. He's a 9. The one thing I will say is, like, I often say knuckleballers are random number generators, and if he went out and had a 3 ERA the rest of the way, I wouldn't really be too surprised because I'm not sure I'm not sure I feel comfortable saying, aha, Matt Waldron has been figured out, or Matt Waldron has lost the feel for, like, I just think sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. And he might just go out the next time out and it works really well. But his knuckleball usage has been trending down. And that's something that I've talked about a lot, where like 40% has kind of been the sweet spot for him. And he has not hit that in 3 of the past 5 starts. Looks like it's like he's been below 40% with his knuckleball usage, like, pretty consistently lately. So yeah, it's seems to have lost it, and yeah, I think he's pretty droppable.
Yeah, and look, you could say this about any pitcher. If they don't have their best pitch working, it's most likely not going well for them. I think that's even more true for a knuckleball pitcher, and Matt Waldron's knuckleball was his 3rd most used pitch in this start. So didn't have a feel for it, only 14% CSW. And if you look at the underlying pitch characteristics, it's far and away his best pitch, which makes sense. So, still 70% rostered. Matt Waldron, 10. I'm going out there, Chris. Yeah. Make it a 10.
That's reasonable
for Matt Waldron. And from one pitcher who could be dropped to another, your player of the night.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I didn't realize we were all going to be so negative when I picked Jordan Montgomery. But yeah, Jordan Montgomery, it's there had been some flashes lately that suggested that maybe he was starting to figure it out, right? Like the curveball, which we've harped on, was starting to look more like it had in the past when he'd been successful. It was a tighter pitch that he was getting less break on, which is, in this case, apparently a good thing because it looked like it had in previous years. But then he goes out against the Marlins, gives up 6 earned runs on 10 hits over 5 2/3 innings, 2 home runs. And the thing is, this doesn't mean Jordan Montgomery won't have good starts moving forward. Probably has 6 starts left, maybe 5 of them. I think that's possible. How could you possibly have any hope or any faith in starting him if he gets rocked by the Marlins like this? It's an untenable situation. And, he was 40% started this week, 66% rostered. I think that made sense with the matchup against the Marlins. Scott, I know you had him as a sleeper pitcher, not to call you out personally.
Unfortunately, I have to recommend 10 bad pitchers every week.
I think we're done here. I can't
promise he'll never be on my sleeper pitchers list again.
I feel more confident in Matt Waldron than Jordan Montgomery.
Yeah, well,
yeah,
I'm pretty much over both of them.
Yeah, and Jordan Montgomery is 60% rostered on CBS, and this has happened a few times this season where we get a little bit of a stretch where things start to look like they're turning around and we're starting to buy in, and then it's boom, we get hit with another terrible start, and especially against the Marlins. Though I will point out, the Marlins have been pesky recently, so
yeah,
I think you could still stream your pitchers against them, but maybe not with as much confidence as before.
Look, if you can't get Christian Pache out, I can't trust you to get real major league hitters out.
I 100% agree, but man, Xavier Edwards, Jake Berger.
No, they have
things. They're doing some things.
They have some life. But yeah, I think those two we're done with, and I'll just spoil the newsletter for tomorrow. Garrett Crochet, we're also. I mean, we were done with him after the last start. He's still 87% rostered. It's just I'm very excited to draft. I'm very excited to draft Garrett Crochet next year. That's what I will say.
Mm-hmm.
They actually, Grady Sizemore, their interim manager, actually said, "Yeah, we're going to cut back on his workload." So it's been obvious now for a couple months, but now they've made it explicit, and they said they're going to reduce it little by little from him being maxing
he only
out
took
of 4 innings.
57 pitches today. I think it was 55 the previous start. He's been good the past 2 starts, and they've pulled him. So all 3 of those pitchers can probably be 20% rostered, and that 20% should probably just be the 20% of leagues that are just the Walking Dead at this point in the season, like the teams that just have given up. I think that's probably where we're at.
And Garrett Crochet is still 87% rostered on CBS.
Way too high.
I think the problem is, and this is such a weird thing to say, there's more pitchers to drop right now than there are ones to add, which sounds weird, but think about all the names we brought up recently. Garrett Crochet, just today, 3 pitchers, some Dodgers guys, Walker Buehler, Bobby Miller, those guys can go. Nick Pivetta, we spoke about yesterday, he's another one that can go. But there's not
the most added pitcher right now is that can't. Okay, no. Sorry, I had the free agent tab. The most added pitchers are Sir Anthony Dominguez, Michael Kopech. Okay, relievers. Among starters, Martin Perez, Zebby Matthews,
Looked pretty lame so far.
Bowden Francis, maybe.
Bowden Francis, as the Toronto listening
Bowden.
audience would tell me.
David Peterson, Osvaldo Bido, Frankie Monty. Yeah, it's pretty.
Francis is pretty
unappetizing.
From that, looking at it from that perspective, I could see how you might keep Crochet around in a daily lineup league where you just want to slot ratios into your lineup as often as possible, because his ratios should still be strong. That's been shaky lately, but he had 9 strikeouts 2 turns ago. But for conventional fantasy leagues, you're setting it once a week, and you really need to have at least a chance at a win from your starting pitcher. I think we're done with Crochet.
Completely done in points leagues.
All right, my goodness gracious from Wednesday is going to be the Reds lineup. They put up 11 runs on 11 hits, including 4 pairs of socks and shoes. Again, we got it from Elly De La Cruz, Jonathan India, Noelvi Marte, Spencer Steer, each with a home run and a steal in this game. Elly De La Cruz now up to 22 homers and 60 steals on the season. It is August 22nd. Where do you think this number winds up end of season? Do we get 75, 80? Elly?
I'm going to say he gets to... I'm going to say 80. I think it's good because remember Ronald Acuna really started running a lot more down the stretch last year once he had some big milestones. And I'm gonna say Elly gets to 80. That's my hot take here.
Love it.
I'll say 75, but that's not
you
a very
coward.
hot take. Tepid, lukewarm water.
We did get an email today asking which players have the most, or does Ellie have the most socks and shoes? He is tied for second. I wanted to see if you guys could guess who he's tied with and who
I haven't seen an inside any of these players' closets. So
who has more. So one player he's tied with 6, and one player has 8.
I'll say Bobby Witt.
Not Bobby Witt. He is not in the top 7.
Wow. He's not running as much this year.
Yeah, he's only got 3, I think. There's 7 players with at least 4.
Fantasy feud, Scott.
Man, I don't know.
Come on.
There's
one guy who's got a ton of both.
And it's not Bobby Witt, so it must be
it's a ton of both.
Shohei Ohtani.
Shohei Ohtani has 8 socks and shoes this season. Would you like to know who
Good
is
for
tied
him. 4
with Ellie De La Cruz?
Yes, who is he tied with?
Francisco Lindor.
That makes sense too.
Yeah.
Never would have guessed him.
Yeah. All right. Well,
Gunnar Henderson has 5, by the way.
Also,
Good for Gunnar.
That's
great player.
And Luis Garcia has 5. Fun facts.
Yeah, those are indeed fun facts. Back to the Reds lineup. Jonathan India, by the way, last 7 games, picking things back up, 370 with 3 home runs and 1 steal. Spencer Steer continues his strong season, up to 19 home runs and 21 steals. Just want to take a closer look at Noelvi Marte. He's a name we haven't talked about recently, and for good reason. Like, he's not really on the fantasy radar right now. He's been really bad. But why has he been so bad? We haven't talked about that. He's been sitting a little bit more recently, rightfully so. Again, he hasn't been good. 197 batting average, a 553 OPS. The strikeout rate is way up. The quality of contact has taken a huge step back. I don't know if it's directly tied to like PEDs. I mean, it could just be, all right, a young player looked good last year, came back this year and struggled. Do you guys have any other hypotheses on Noelvi Marte?
I think most people would think the PED suspension and the fact that he is presumably no longer on PEDs. I think history suggests that people tend to overstate what players lose after they get suspended for performance-enhancing drugs in Major League Baseball. So I don't know how much I want to tie that into it. I think it's probably the suspension, though. You know, he didn't play for 81 games. He was, I think you have to be away from the team entirely when you're suspended. So, like, I think that stuff just takes a toll. He didn't get a normal season. He's a young player.
22.
So yeah, I that's my guess, but
yeah,
certainly my optimism for Noelvi Marte in the long run has taken a hit. You know, given how he looked overmatched at AAA, let alone the majors this season. So I'm certainly concerned about him moving forward.
I don't know that I am. I acquired him in a dynasty league a couple weeks ago, 24 teams, so deep. And I'm out of it. I'm not looking for Noelvi Marte to make an impact on my team this year, but he's 22 and he's been a big prospect since he was 17. And he has speed, he has power. The strikeout rate is out of character, and you wouldn't think that would have any impact from any connection to PEDs. I think he's just not squaring up the ball very well right now.
And as the old prospect cliche goes, progress is not linear. So just because he was really good last year and really bad this year, you know, there's going to be some ups, some downs. And we've seen a lot of that from young, talented prospects over the past couple of years. I have a feeling you'll be able to get Noelvi Marte for dirt cheap entering next season, if you so please. Want to give a shout out to the Yankees. The 2 Yankees that show up every day. It's another day. Some more homers for Juan Soto and Aaron Judge. Soto hit his 36th. That is now a new career high for him. And Aaron Judge 2 for 3 with a double dong, 3 RBI. He is now batting his triple slash. 334, 465, 722 with 47 home runs, 117 RBI on August 22nd.
That's a hell of a season.
And I think I saw he's on pace for 60 homers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So if he just stays on pace, he'll become the 3rd player ever with multiple 60 homer seasons, and
McGuire Sosa.
The first without PED ties.
Plus, he's going to be challenging for the AL home run record that we all definitely cared about.
Yeah, his own. Yeah.
Yeah, like I think I saw Soto and Judge are the first teammates to have a 185 OPS plus since Ruth and Gehrig.
Jeez.
Like that, those are the only two teammates that have ever done it before. I think they did it 5 times. That's you can make an argument that this is the best offensive pairing in a season in MLB history.
Yeah, I think I saw some article on Baseball Prospectus making that argument, and by the metric they were using, it wasn't particularly close. I immediately thought, okay, well, what about Ronald Acuna and Matt Olson last year? But they were quite a bit behind.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Jeff Passan, by the way, put out a tweet regarding Aaron Judge, just comparing his this season versus his 2022. Through 127 games, then he had 49 home runs. This year, 47. So he's really not far off from that pace. I know that he went off over the final month, so not sure he'll be able to exceed that. Can he get to 60? It is a possibility. Nonetheless, it's an amazing season once again from Aaron Judge. Let's take our first break. Oh, just wanted to remind everyone a little programming note. I will not be on tomorrow's podcast, but Scott and Chris will be here to hold it down. So, yeah, make sure you are here on a Kokomo Friday to hang out with the guys. Let's take our first break. When we return, some news and notes right after this.
College football is back. SMU at Nevada on CBS Sports Network.
Welcome back in news and notes. Luis Gil was placed in the IL with a lower back strain, and Aaron Boone said the injury is considered minor. The Yankees are hopeful Gil can return when first eligible on September 5th. Will Warren has been recalled to take Gil's spot in the rotation for now. I say for now because Clark Schmidt will start a rehab assignment on Friday and is 57% rostered. There are multiple layers here. Scott, I'll start with you. Do you think Luis Gil returns as a starter when he's eligible to return? And are you interested in stashing Clark Schmidt?
I think that this injury makes for a nice opportunity for the Yankees to slow down Gil's innings accumulation. And so they're obviously playoff bound, and they're going to need to fill out a playoff rotation. And I'd imagine they still want Gil to be a part of that. So we don't know how long he's going to miss, obviously. And we don't know how urgently the Yankees are going to need him back. But I think they're thinking, okay, we give him a couple weeks rest, and this will allow us to keep him in the starting rotation deeper into October, potentially. So that's what I suspect is going to happen. I don't know how useful he's going to be for fantasy rest of season, but that's what I'm guessing the Yankees are thinking.
If there were pitchers worth adding, I think you might have a tough conversation to have about Luis Gil.
Yeah.
Given that we don't necessarily love anyone who's widely available right now, you probably don't have a tough decision to make, but he's in that drop-o-meter segment for tomorrow's newsletter. I gave him a 5 just because, like, if you're in a points league, 3 weeks from now doesn't really exist. Like, you got to get there. And if you really need the roster spot, and you don't have an IL spot to put Luis Gil in, I think you can consider it.
I would say that Jacob deGrom is more stashable than Luis Gil.
Mm-hmm.
If he's
Probably
out there in
going
your
to
league.
come back around the same time.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. I also think if you're in an NFBC league with no IL spots, you could probably go ahead and drop Luis Gil as well. Clark Schmidt, the other part of that question, earlier in the season, he was having a career year, 2.52 ERA, 1.14 WHIP. It was much better than we've ever seen him before, so I'm not sure that's going to carry over again. But he's 57% rostered. Any interest in stashing Clark Schmidt?
Want to see how he looks on the rehab assignment, but I think he's stashable, yeah.
We just read off the list of pitchers being added off the waiver wire right now. I would say Clark Schmidt, based on what he was doing earlier, just to refresh everybody's memory, a 2.52 ERA, 9.9 K per nine, a 12.5% swinging strike rate. No guarantee he comes back throwing like that again, but I'm interested in that, sure.
I'll also say, like, Will Warren in deep leagues is worth it. He's had a really bad season at AAA. Still gets a ton of strikeouts. Was good in his spot start last week. It's a name in deeper leagues.
Mm-hmm. That start did come against a minor league team, though, the Chicago White Sox.
I mean, look, I think the day before that start, who was it? Nestor Cortez got bombed. Who was it?
No, it was Luis Gil, actually.
Okay, there you go. He's better than Luis Gil.
There you go. You heard it here first. Yesterday, Chris gave us Lucan Baker, who hit a home run on Wednesday.
They called me a madman.
Today he says Will Warren better than Luis Gil. You heard it here first.
Between Lucan Baker homering in his first major league game of the season and Richard Lovelady getting a save last week, I'm going to play the lottery.
Let's go
this weekend.
Get it done. Get it done, Chris. Apparently, Tyler Glasnow has yet to begin playing catch. Dave Roberts said that Glasnow likely won't be activated when first eligible on August 31st. Jazz Chisholm took batting practice on the field Wednesday, his first time swinging a bat since being diagnosed with a sprained left elbow. Alex Bregman returned to the Astros lineup as the DH. He went 1 for 4 with his 20th home run. Nolan Gorman was optioned to AAA. He was batting just .203 with a 38% strikeout rate and a 671 OPS. We'll always have that awesome stretch in like May, June, where he hit a bunch of home runs. But since June 5th, Nolan Gorman had a 40% strikeout rate and a 511 OPS. So
the Cardinals have some problems. Like I don't know. They've still had a few successes with like Newbar and Alec Burleson and guys like that, but like a lot of their most high-profile prospects in the last few years have completely.
Yeah, your mic is doing that thing again, Chris, where you sound like you're underwater. So I don't know if you want to maybe unplug and
I'll dive down and.
But yeah, I think to your broader point, the Cardinals have kind of struggled here, not with all of their prospects. Like Mason Wynn is having a totally fine season. But even you mentioned Newbar, and like Newbar hasn't been that good either. So I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what the future holds for the Cardinals. Yoshinobu Yamamoto threw a simulated game on Wednesday, his second sim game since landing on the IL. Max Scherzer will make a rehab start at AA on Friday and is on track to return early next week. Jarrett Jones dominated his latest rehab start, striking out 10 over 5 scoreless innings at AAA on Tuesday. Victor Vodnik was placed in the IL with a right bicep inflammation. It was Angel Chivilli who picked up the save on Tuesday, though they can also look to turn back to Tyler Kinley as well. Jorge Soler has been running the bases and remains on track to return this weekend. He actually did appear as a pinch hitter on Wednesday. Camilo Doval is expected to be recalled during the Giants' upcoming road trip. My guess, and I didn't read this anywhere, is that he will not pitch in high leverage situations. I think they just needed an extra arm out of the bullpen. Do you guys feel differently?
They said it was going to be a short-term stay from the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
I can't promise he won't quickly find his way back into the closer role, but I'm not looking to drop Ryan Walker for him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I wouldn't drop Ryan Walker.
I think Walker's pretty good so far in the role, right?
He's been very good this season, yeah. But I think it could be a situation where a couple of good outings could get him back in there.
Mm-hmm. D-backs manager Torey Lovullo said Ryan Nelson is tentatively scheduled to start Friday against the Red Sox. Anthony Rizzo is closing in on a rehab assignment. He's been out since mid-June with a fractured right forearm. And one of the best of this generation, Scott is wearing the shirt right now. Joey Votto officially announced his retirement. One of the best hitters in this generation, one of the most fun players, one of the most respected players. It's an awesome career for Joey Votto. Is he a Hall of Famer?
He retired with a .409 career on base percentage. Yes, he's a Hall of Famer.
That's really good.
So
it's crazy that it would even be a question.
But Chris, he doesn't swing the bat.
I've got a fun little tidbit for you. So my very first day working at CBS was also Joey Votto's very first day in the majors, September 4th, 2007, a Tuesday. I remember because my start at CBS was delayed a day for Labor Day. So Joey Votto and we've had these kind of like careers that have run parallel, and I'm the one still standing. I'll just point that out.
Oh, I thought this was turning into your retirement speech, Scott.
No, I'm still here.
When
he is not.
When Votto goes, Scott goes.
No, that's not what I'm saying. Joey Votto, so that following season after he made that September debut, 2008, my first year covering baseball for CBS, I did have Joey Votto as a sleeper. Unfortunately, I liked Nick Johnson even more.
Oh man,
So
love Nick Johnson.
I've regretted that in the 17 years since. But Joey Votto was, one of my early favorites. I loved him from the very start of his career, and I loved him for his numbers. But as he was in the league for a while, his personality came out more and more, and we all came to learn he's just like a delightful person too.
He's kind of a weirdo. Yeah, I love him. Yeah, one of my all-time favorite players.
Everybody loves Joey Votto. This isn't the last we're going to see of him. I'm sure he could get any job in media he wants, and I think. If any voter out there is on the fence about putting him in the Hall of Fame, I think just how beloved he is going to be enough to put them over. Maybe that's not the way it should be, but I think that is the way it is. And so I think it's very likely he does get in even on the first ballot.
Yeah, Joe Mauer getting in on the first ballot has me convinced that Joey Votto will as well. Obviously not the same player, but similar cases. Don't have like huge counting stats, but just historically great hitters.
Yeah, 100%. Clean sweep across the board. I think Joey Votto's a Hall of Famer as well. It would be pretty awesome if we get him in there first ballot as well. Let's get into some waiver wire hitters. And man, like we continue to talk about these outfielders, they're still available in less than 80% of leagues. So if you're playing a 10-team league, a 12-team points league, I know, in leagues with 3 outfielders, you might have to
available in less than 20% of leagues.
Yes. You might have to drop someone who's like of bigger name value, but if you want to get one of the hottest hitters in the game, Jake McCarthy, Masataka Yoshida, and Kerry Carpenter has been doing it for a shorter stint since returning from the IL. But all 3 of these guys look pretty awesome right now. Just to remind everyone, Scott, how would you rank McCarthy, Yoshida, and Kerry Carpenter over the final 5 weeks of the season?
Well, Yoshida is the one who I trust to play the most, and he has the best skill set for points leagues. So I think in either format, I would say Yoshida, but twice over in points leagues.
Agreed.
And then the other 2, I'm going to go Carpenter and.
I'm going to assume he said Jake McCarthy there, and I agree.
This doesn't really work because it's off. Scott isn't in the right part of the screen.
Here, wait out.
But Robo Scott is back.
Yeah.
And Scott's picture is just frozen right now, so it looks like he's just annoyingly rolling his eyes while talking.
Oh, I'm annoyed. All right.
What a delightful disaster this podcast has been so far.
It's been so great. All right, Scott, I don't know if you want to put a bow on your
McCarthy was 3rd. Carpenter, I will point out he had gone 1 for 14 in his 4 games prior to this one. So it hasn't been all sunshine and rainbows since he came off the IL, and he does still sit against left-handers. So I don't want to overhype Carpenter. I think all 3 of these guys are in the 40 to 50 range of my rankings. So not somebody, not players that you really need to care about in 3 outfielder leagues, except maybe Yoshida while he's so hot.
I updated the ranks here on Wednesday, and I moved these guys. Right to that range that you just mentioned. I think I actually had Jake McCarthy the highest. So maybe I'm alone in that endeavor. But I have McCarthy at 40, Yoshida at 45, and Kerry Carpenter at 56. So maybe I need to move those guys up a little bit more. But let's see. I moved like Lane Thomas behind them. I think that's a move you can make.
Yeah.
You guys good with that?
I moved Lane Thomas down. I don't think I moved him down that much, though.
The playing time has taken a step back recently.
Right. I understand why you have. And I think the struggles in the playing time are connected. And so if Lane Thomas were to heat up, which I suspect he will at some point, the playing time would go back. But whatever. I don't have a great fondness for Lane Thomas that would cause me to complain about you doing that.
I moved Wyatt Langford behind McCarthy and Yoshida too. I don't know if you guys would make that swap.
You probably should.
I haven't, but
No, I haven't either.
Yeah, no,
That's why I said
it's one of those things like, okay, how do you view rankings? How literal are we being? These are rest of season rankings, because I think I would rather bet on Langford if I'm betting on one guy for the rest of season, but I don't want Langford in my lineup as much as I want Yoshida right now.
Yeah, I've kind of changed my rankings philosophy just because, we only have about a month left in the season. So I've kind of put more of a slant on who do I want to start right now? Like, who do I want in my lineup? And so I've been a little bit more aggressive with players that have just been flat out bad or losing playing time. I was a little bit more aggressive in moving those guys down the rankings here. Some middle infielders. Mason Wynn has actually hit for more power here in the second half. 258 batting average, but 6 home runs, 18 runs scored, a 760 OPS. He is hitting the ball harder and barreling it up more. 69% rostered is Mason Wynn. And Brendan Rodgers, if you are looking for a middle infield streamer for next week, 7 home games in Colorado and having a big August is Brendan Rodgers. Chris, who do you like more, Mason Wynn or Rodgers?
I think Mason Wynn is the better player and the better hitter, but we have 5 weeks left, and one of them for Brendan Rodgers is all 7 games at Coors Field. So I'm okay with that. Wynn has been disappointing since moving into the leadoff spot, mostly because he only has 3 steals in 68 games as a leadoff hitter. And I thought he was going to start running a lot more. He's 88th percentile on sprint speed. I think he's a really solid hitter. I've made the Tim Anderson comparison several times, and I think it's apt. Not quite as good as peak Tim Anderson, but a really solid hitter. It's just that profile looks a lot better if it's 25 steals instead of 15.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's certainly fast enough, Mason Wynn. I'm a little surprised he hasn't run more myself. Some names in 5 outfielder leagues. John Kenzie Noel is picking up more playing time recently. He started 7 of the past 8 games. He hit another home run here on Wednesday. The plate discipline, Scott, I have no idea how to explain John Kenzie Noel. I mean, a 50% chase rate is ridiculously high. Like, among qualified hitters, he would be number 1 with a 50% chase rate. Mm-hmm. His zone contact is 92.6%. That's better than Jose Ramirez. So, like, he is just a confounding player in terms of plate discipline. That's John Kenzie Noel. Parker Meadows has hit well since returning from the IL. He went 3 for 5 with 2 doubles and 2 RBI. And Matt Wallner continues to hit for power since being recalled on July 7th. 304 batting average, 7 home runs, and OPS nearing 1,100 during that time. 5 outfielder leagues, Scott. How would you rank John Kenzie Noel, Parker Meadows, and Matt Wallner?
I don't buy any of these guys.
Oh, really? I think all 3 of them should be more rostered than they are.
I think they're all kind of interesting, too.
You said John Kenzie Noel has a 96% zone contact rate?
92.6.
Because that's not...
Unless I was looking at the wrong player, which is...
I'm seeing 87.6%. That is StatCast data.
Oh, I'm looking at Fangraphs. Stat info solution, sport info.
Okay, so you're good. It's different source. Yeah. Okay, it makes a big difference. The source apparently 88 versus 96%. 88's good.
Yeah.
Yeah. You gotta love Big Christmas, but it's he's just that's not a disciplined enough hitter, I think, and the fact that the strikeout rate and the chase rate are both so high. Quality of contact is high, like he hits the ball hard, and you can overcome it that way. But I'd bet against it. At Noel's expected batting average is only 210 versus his actual 257 batting average. So I think in the long run, he's going to be pretty fringy for 5 outfielder leagues. But I don't have like a lot more confidence in Wallner or Meadows. Wallner had gone 1 for 14 in his previous 7 games, so he's slowed down quite a bit, as you'd expect. I don't know. I guess Noel is who I'd take first, but not with a lot of gusto, clearly.
I might go with Meadows, actually. He had obviously a horrible start to the season, was really, really good when he got sent back to AAA. Had, I think it was 3 really good games after getting called back up, then got hurt. and has hit well since returning. So I think Parker Meadows is probably the best of this group. Noel and Wallner have the one stronger skill. Both of them are power standouts. And I think like Noel has 29 homers between AAA and the majors in like 102 games. And Wallner, we know, has top end raw power. So I feel more comfortable that those guys are going to give me power than that Meadows is going to give me anything. But I think Meadows has the more well-rounded skill set.
Parker Meadows in 14 games since returning from the IL, it's a 352 batting average, 1 homer, 5 doubles, 2 triples, 5 steals, and a 949 OPS. So I am pretty excited about Parker Meadows in 5 outfielder leagues as well. Do any of these names matter? I guess in deeper leagues, Geraldo Perdomo has been doing some things, 2 for 5 with his second home run, hits for good batting average. Modest speed there. Spencer Horwitz, 2 for 3 with 2 walks, a double, and his 8th home run. He has homered in back-to-back games, 4 home runs in August. So hitting for a little bit more power is Horwitz. And Ernie Clement, 2 for 4 with his 9th home run, 3 RBI. He has homered in back-to-back games. He has 3 homers in his past 6. And he is playing every day for the Blue Jays. Chris, do any of these matter? Ernie Clement, Spencer Horwitz, and Geraldo Perdomo.
I think the 2 Blue Jays guys matter a lot more than Perdomo. I think he's just empty batting average, but if you need that, I guess he's okay in deeper leagues. But Horwitz and Clement are both moderately interesting. I think Horwitz more so. There's a little more pop. He's a good on base guy. So in deep points leagues or OBP leagues, I think Spencer Horwitz is a decent starting option.
I like Horwitz more than any of the other hitters we've talked about in this segment. So more than those 3 outfielders we just talked about, Noel, Meadows, and Wallner. I think Horwitz is actually good, and he's playing every day. He's started against 6 of the last 7 left-handers, or 6 of the 7 left-handers the Blue Jays have faced in August. So he's not a platoon player. His line drive rate is very high. His strikeout rate is low. His walk rate is high. And he's showing more over the fence power than a lot of people gave him credit for. Mm-hmm. Eligible at first and second base. I think he's a really solid middle infield choice right now, at a time of year where we don't have as many of those because of injuries.
And I will say, I think I'm more interested in about 5 of the hitters we've talked about than literally any of the pitchers we're about to talk about.
Yeah. And that goes back to what we said earlier, is that there's just not that many interesting waiver wire pitchers right now. Let's take our final break. And when we return, we will talk about those names right after this. Welcome back in. Let's take a look at some waiver wire pitchers from Wednesday. Michael Lorenzen has pitched well since joining the Royals. 7 shutout innings with 5 strikeouts in 4 starts with Kansas City, 1.99 ERA and a 1.15 WHIP. Andrew Heaney pitched well up against the Pirates, 5 shutout innings with 8 strikeouts, 22 whiffs on 90 pitches for him in this one. Mitchell Parker was great up against the Rockies, 7 innings, 1 run with 6 strikeouts. But in his previous start, he gave up 9 earned runs, and his last 10 starts overall before this one, a 6.38 ERA and a 1.54 WHIP for Mitchell Parker. And Simeon Woods Richardson, a solid start at the Padres, 5 innings, 1 run, 7 strikeouts, 13 whiffs on 101 pitches. Scott, you're up. Are any of these pitchers interesting for fantasy?
Not particularly. They should remain, in terms of roster percentage, they should remain in that streamable range, because these are the kinds of bad pitchers I have to choose from every week when I write that article. But I don't think they're good. I had my flirtation with Andrew Heaney earlier this season when his slider velocity first spiked, and it's remained up. He had 22 swinging strikes in this game, in addition to the 8 strikeouts. But in terms of keeping runs off the board, things really haven't gotten better for him. His 2 starts prior to this one, a combined 7 earned runs in 9 innings. The starts have all been on the shorter side. So even though Andrew Heaney is showing some swing and miss ability there, he just hasn't been that useful for fantasy. And guessing that's not going to change at this point. Michael Lorenzen, we know his story. This was his first start with the Royals that was even 6 innings, much less 7. So hard to get excited there. Mitchell Parker, the innings are escalating for him, and we've seen the production drop off. And I wasn't willing to recommend him against the Rockies because the previous start was such a disaster. I guess I should have in retrospect, but if the matchup's any worse than that, I'd still be disinclined to recommend Parker. I guess maybe the most advisable of these pitchers is Simeon Woods Richardson, but that's not saying much.
Yeah, he's a pitcher where his slider looks like it's a pretty good pitch, not even elite, and he doesn't really have much else going on. So the results have been good, but it's a 432 xFIP, it's a 391 FIP. It's again, I think he's another name that's in that streamable territory, and we just got to play the matchups with a lot of pitchers like this. 2 names in the deepest of leagues. Domingo Germán. Yeah, that's right. That Domingo Germán. He is on the Pirates now, and he turned in a quality start at the Rangers. 6 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts. He had 11 whiffs on 75 pitches. And Mitch Spence had an interesting start up against Tampa Bay. 7 innings, 4 runs, but had 10 strikeouts, 15 whiffs on 105 pitches. Chris, anything here in the deepest of leagues?
With Amon, no, not at all. Maybe with Mitch Spence, just like he threw the slider more and it's been a pretty good pitch for him. So maybe that's a path moving forward in deeper leagues. He's got the Reds in his next game. I'll keep an eye on that one. And, he might be a 2-star pitcher next week if he's pitching on Wednesday. So like as a spark, yeah, I could see him being useful.
I'm going to go as far as to say Mitch Spence isn't any worse than that previous group because he gets ground balls at a high rate. He throws strikes at a high rate. The whiffs are weird that he got 15 whiffs, 10 strikeouts in this one, out of character. But he does well on the other 2 legs of the FIP triangle, and I think he's somebody to consider when the matchups are right.
All right, let's do a little buy or sell. And some of these will be kind of slanted towards 2025, as I mentioned yesterday. As the season winds down, we'll start to get those gears turning a little bit for some next year value and drafts as well. Buy or sell. Justin Verlander will be a difference maker down the stretch. He pitched well in his return up against the Red Sox, 5 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, had 10 whiffs on 76 pitches, and the velocity was actually up slightly here, which I think is something we always want to pay attention to coming back from injury. What do you guys think? Buy or sell? Justin Verlander, a difference maker down the stretch.
Sell, specifically that wording. I don't think he's a difference maker.
I was going to say the same thing. He needs to be rostered over any of the pitchers we've talked about as waiver wire options, but I don't think he's going to be the difference between you winning and losing. I think he's just going to be a useful piece.
Verlander, 28% rostered, and it looks like he is at the Phillies next week, which is a little bit scary. He's a fly ball pitcher.
They've been pretty bad. Yeah.
It's been ice cold. Yeah. So that one could go either way. I think if you're in deeper leagues, you probably could use Verlander, but in a 12-team league, you probably have someone better than Verlander, at least in that matchup. Next up, each of James Wood, Jackson Chourio, and Jackson Merrill will be top 50 picks in 2025. Buy or sell?
It's always hard when I don't have the names. Like I have to go.
You don't know who the other 47 names
Rolodex of names in my head real quick to make sure they don't get pushed to 65 instead of 50. But just in the spirit of the question, I'm inclined to buy this. I think they are trending toward being studs.
Now, it's funny. We were grouping the Jacksons all last week, and then Jackson Holiday went super ice cold over the last 8 or 9 games. And now it's a question for him whether he'll get in that range.
Yeah. I think a lot of it depends on how he finishes the season, obviously. But yeah, I mean, top 50, I think that would be a little bit tough for Jackson Holiday to get there. But yeah, I mean, if he gets as hot as some of these guys have been, like Jackson Merrill's second half, 333, 6 homers, 3 steals, a 1024 OPS, Chorio's second half, 327, 6 homers, 7 steals, 917 OPS. And I did have a question on James Wood. Could his lack of success on the base paths hinder his ability to run next year? Now, the Nationals are first in steals this year. They've been incredibly aggressive. As long as Davey Martinez is their manager, I think they're probably going to be aggressive again next year. But he has 7 caught stealing to 6 steals. What do you guys think?
So that's one of those where it's like
Time to eat.
That's one of those ones where like projecting steals is hard because it's not just ability, it's willingness. And in this case, it's not necessarily James Wood's willingness, because I think he will be willing. It's now we're asking, like, does he have the ability? Yes. Does he have the willingness? Yes. Will his team allow him to? I'm inclined to say yes. I don't think the Nationals are going to be a division favorite next year. So
and they've been far and away the most aggressive base running team this year.
So I tend to think James Wood, look, it's probably not 40 steal upside, but 20. I still think that's pretty reasonable.
I was going through the Rolodex of names some more as Chris answered that question. I think 75, top 75 is more realistic than top 50 once you start working in other positions other than outfield. So I'll sell it in the strictest sense, but I like where your head's at.
20
Scott,
like, top 20 outfielders.
Yeah.
You know,
top 20 outfielders, sure.
my thought was, I don't think Jackson Merrill will get there. I think Jackson Merrill's probably more of a top 75 guy. I think Chorio and James Wood are top.
So
I'd be inclined to take Merrill over Wood if the season ended today.
I think Frank's hunch is correct, but I don't know if there's merit to it.
No merit to Merrill.
I think there's lots of merit.
Oh, he's
Merrill.
awesome. There's no doubt about it. I
Look
think
at his expected stats.
I think people will talk themselves into the other guys more because of the hype, because of, maybe better physical tools, but like
the prospect pedigree was better for both of those guys.
Although Merrill was a top 12 prospect pretty much across the board. Like,
all right, maybe I'm underselling.
No, you're right. There was so much more hype for those guys when they got called up than Jackson Merrill. Jackson Merrill was an afterthought for fantasy in a lot of ways, but I think he's a more fully formed player right now. And he's just as young as them.
I will commit right now.
Uh-oh.
Unless their paces change between now and the end of the season, I will rank Jackson Merrill higher than both Jackson Chourio and James Wood. I'm calling it now.
I think James Wood has a chance to play himself into top 30 ADP. I don't think I will rank him anywhere close to that, but that's the one that I think people like. If he hits 8 more home runs the rest of the way and like starts hitting the ball in the air to the pull side, I think people are really going to talk themselves into James Wood as like as a 3rd round pick next year.
Chris, I think you and I had this conversation on a podcast that Scott wasn't on.
Yeah.
But basically, Scott, we said we see James Wood kind of getting the Ellie De La Cruz treatment next year, like 2nd or 3rd round pick.
I mean, I don't know why. Ellie De La Cruz was on a ridiculous steals pace last year where it was easy to say, okay, if he just keeps that going, how is he not going to be a 3rd round pick? And James Wood hasn't. And we're talking about how he hasn't been a particularly good base stealer. So I don't. I could be wrong.
We can all be wrong,
because part of the question is not, hey, Scott, where do you rank these players? It's where do you think other people will draft them? And that's a different question.
Every time I bring up rookie hitters being bad, all I get is 1,000. What about Jackson Merrills? So I don't know. How do you gauge something like that? It seems like people have come around to Jackson Merrill.
Vibes. Yeah, that's right, Chris. Let's move on and talk about Sean Manaea, who's been pretty good for quite some time now. Up against the Orioles, 7 innings, 3 runs, 9 strikeouts to 0 walks. He had 13 whiffs on 90 pitches. And his last 13 starts now, it's a 2.83 ERA, a 1.02 whip, just over a strikeout per inning. Buy or sell, the Mets have unlocked Sean Manaea.
No more than the A's unlocked Sean Manaea in 2019 when he had that really good stretch, or I just feel like we go through this with Sean Manaea at various points throughout his career where it's like, oh, he's doing some interesting things for like a 12 start stretch or whatever. And then he ends up with an ERA over 4 more often than not. I don't know. I don't really believe in it, but I haven't believed it in all season, and he's been really good. So what do I know?
So when he ditches that cutter, that seems to be the correlation between him getting 9 or 10 strikeouts over 7 innings and him not. So, like, I don't know. Hopefully he's woken up to that and can be a little more reliable to close out the season. He's 87% rostered, shockingly. So I don't even do I really think Sean Manaea is like this stud the rest of the way? No, not even close. I think you'll struggle to get him in your lineup most weeks, rightfully. But I think he needs to be rostered. It looks like he already is.
Man, the schedule has been extremely favorable for Sean Manaea lately too. Like today, dude, 9 strikeouts against the Orioles. That's incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Before that, it was Marlins, Mariners, Cardinals, Twins, Yankees. It was probably his worst start in this stretch. Rockies on the road, Pirates, bad against lefties, Nationals, bad against lefties, Yankees, 5 walks, 3 strikeouts. He's been really good against some really, really bad competition too.
All right. Again, that was Sean Manaea. Let's move over to Nolan Arenado, who is heating up 3 for 5 with a walk-off grand slam. And in the second half, batting .275 with 6 home runs, 19 RBI, and an .822 OPS. That is more of the Nolan Arenado we were expecting. So, buy or sell, Nolan Arenado will pretty much be Nolan Arenado from this point forward.
I don't know what Nolan Arenado means anymore.
Let's say he just
you know what he means.
Maintains the second half pace. 35 with an .820 OPS.
That seems reasonable enough. The home run today was a perfect Nolan Arenado home run. It was like almost exactly down the line, barely cleared the fence. Like I could see him hitting 275 with a low 800s OPS the rest of the way. I don't necessarily know I expect that, but it doesn't seem unreasonable to expect it.
Yeah. I couldn't phrase it any better than that.
So did I actually get a buy or sell from either of you?
I guess a tepid buy.
Yeah, sure.
All right. Let's wrap up this conversation with Garrett Crochet, who we already spoke about his workload and everything that's going on. Buy or sell, Crochet will be drafted as a top 12 starting pitcher in 2020.
Oh boy. This is another one. We gotta get out the mental Rolodex.
So Strider's going to be back there.
Is he going to get drafted as a top 12?
Yeah. Yeah, because he didn't have Tommy John, remember?
Oh, that's right, yeah.
I don't know.
You're skeptical, Frank?
All right, so let's get Skubal, Sale, Wheeler, Cease?
Probably.
Burns, Reagans,
Gilbert, Kirby,
Gilbert, Kirby, Skeens. I'm going to say Strider. 9. That brings us to 10. If we put Strider in there. Could I get Crochet next? Do we say Glass now?
Glass now will go ahead of him.
Yeah.
Garrett Cole.
I think Cole should go ahead of him.
Yeah, if he's healthy. Yeah. Okay. So sell.
Yeah, I think you get to like Pablo Lopez, Aaron Nola, Luis Castillo, Zach Gallen, that like former ace tier that have disappointed this season. I guess Nola hasn't disappointed. You throw in Framber Valdez if he keeps the strikeouts up down the stretch. I think they're all in that conversation. So I will sell top 12, buy top 20.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Easily top 20, but I sell top 12. Yep.
Yeah, he's probably going to be, in that range. Again, if you want to get those wheels turning, somewhere in the 12 to 20 range for Garrett Crochet.
He's going to be very controversial.
Yes.
There's going to be a lot of fights about Garrett Crochet, but it sounds like not on this podcast.
What's crazy is we don't pay much attention to wins here because, they're fluky. I get that they're a category, but they're not They're hard to predict. Garrett Crochet has 6 wins this season, and I don't think it's going to get much better next year for the White Sox.
He was doing okay until
finishes with 6.
Until they started having him make 4 inning starts where he has no chance of getting a win. He was doing okay win-wise before that.
The White Sox should be better next year.
Just law of averages.
Worse, Chris.
Yeah. I don't think anyone's ever lost 120 games 2 seasons in a row. I would guess even 110 games 2 seasons in a row is pretty rare. So like they'll be more of a normal bad team next year, probably. Although once you start thinking about like they're going to trade Luis Robert this offseason, right? Like how do they actually?
Well, they should frankly trade Garrett Crochet this offseason, and that would take that concern away completely.
Yep, that would
cross our fingers.
That would certainly help his value for next year. Let's get into some leftovers, and we will start with Max Fried here, who has had a weird season. Finally turned in a quality start since returning from the IL up against the Phillies. 7 innings, 2 runs, only 4 strikeouts, only 7 whiffs on 91 pitches. Weird pitch mix. He leaned on his 3 iterations of a fastball, 4-seam sinker and cutter. He allowed a ton of hard contact.
Yeah.
Scott, what do you make of this, man? It's a weird season for Max Fried.
You know, I have kept Max Fried in my top 20 as bad as he looked in his first 3 starts back from the forearm injury. Mostly that was because of walks, which were completely out of character. Didn't have any problems with walks in this one. He threw a ton of strikes. Walked just 1. It was 11 walks in 13 2/3 innings in the previous 3 starts. So got back on track control-wise, but yeah, a lot of hard contact. Didn't look normal necessarily. I'm inclined to keep him in the top 20 because he's Max Fried and obviously has quite the track record there. And also with the way he's expanded his arsenal to like 7-8 pitches, he has this Mitch Keller quality to him where it's like, if you're going to mix up your arsenal that much, it gets to be really hard to predict from one start to the next what's going to happen. And so hopefully this is a step in the right direction. You got to throw strikes to have any success. Obviously it wasn't a perfect start for Fried, but I'm going to trust it was a step in the right direction.
All right, let's get into some other pitching standouts. Logan Webb continues his great run. He was up against the White Sox, 8 innings, 2 runs, 6 strikeouts, had 15 whiffs on 93 pitches. Nestor Cortez, back-to-back scoreless outings, this time against the Guardians, 7 shutout innings with 4 strikeouts, 15 whiffs on 104 pitches. Ryan Pepiot turned in a quality start at Oakland, 6 innings, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts, 18 whiffs on 90 pitches. Maybe the best the changeup has looked all season for Ryan Pepiot. And Jack Flaherty fell just 1 out short of a quality start up against the Mariners. 5 2/3, 2 runs, 5 strikeouts, 4 starts with the Dodgers. It's a 3.22 ERA and a 1.25 WHIP for Jack Flaherty. Chris, anything to add on Flaherty, Pepiot, Cortez, and Logan Webb?
Yeah, so Pepiot, the changeup was supposed to be his best pitch, when he was coming up as a prospect. And it turns out that he's got this dominant 4-seam fastball as well. And if the changeup starts to become a legitimate plus pitch like it was expected to be, the whole profile looks a lot more interesting because I was really struggling with him early on. He was getting good results, but it was like 35% whiff rate with his fastball, which wasn't sustainable. And it's turned out to not be sustainable. He's down to 32% for the season. But with that changeup looking better, and the slider has played okay in terms of whiffs, I think Ryan Pepiot's pretty good.
I'm not sure.
Go ahead.
I'm not sure that the changeup actually got better in this start. I just think he made it less predictable. Like usually his fastball and changeup usage are 30 percentage points apart. 51% fastballs, 21% changeups. They were only 8 percentage points apart. So he threw the fastball less, threw the changeup more, and they both played up because of it. That's what it looked like to me, which is something that I think Pepiot could sustain potentially.
A couple other pitching standouts. Just wanted to mention Logan Gilbert, who got beat up at the Dodgers, 4 2/3, 8 runs, 6 of those were earned. He still had lots of whiffs.
Yeah.
some hard contact in this one. Anything worrisome with Logan Gilbert, or is this just you face the Dodgers when their entire lineup is back together?
Yeah, I think it's Dodgers happen. Like his slider he threw it like 44% of the time in this one, and it was really the only thing working for him. 83.4 mile per hour average exit velocity on the slider, 95.6 on the other pitches. So just, I think it's one of those games, but he's really good. So I'm not really concerned.
And welcome back to Johnny Cueto, who turned in a quality start with the Angels. Could be one of the last starts of his career. The Royals fan base actually gave him a standing ovation when he was walking off the field. So you'll love to see it for Johnny Cueto. Scott, did you have anything? It sounded like maybe you did.
Well, I just wanted to point out for Jack Flaherty, 3 of his 4 starts with the Dodgers have been less than 6 innings. So he's pitched well, but not long enough to get a quality start. And I wonder if they're just going to handle him that way moving forward. Ask less of him than the Tigers did, which would be unfortunate for his fantasy value. I don't know that you can really treat him differently in fantasy because of it, because what else are you going to do?
You're starting him, yeah.
Maybe in shallower leagues he becomes a little less startable. You play the matchups a little more with Flaherty, but that's all I can really say about it.
Some hitting leftovers. Move over, Ellie De La Cruz. Jake Berger, 1 for 3 with a sock and a shoe. How about that? The wheels on Jake Berger. 25th home run, his first steal. Yeah, he's up to a 780 OPS, 250 batting average, 25 homers. You know, whenever
He's kind of...
We're probably going to get 30 home runs and a 250 batting average from Jake Berger.
He's kind of like backing his way into the season we hoped he would have, or thought. I guess we hoped that the contact gains from last year were real. Turns out they weren't. But yeah, if he ends up hitting 30 plus homers, we're probably going to feel pretty good about Jake Berger.
Yeah.
I mean, those of us who held on to him and didn't trade him for Craig Kimbrell.
Or if you're like me, I traded Jake Berger and Wilyer Abreu to Todd Zola in Tout Wars for Zach Gallen. At the time, I thought, wow, fantastic trade. All the players traded went in opposite directions.
Yeah.
So.
I would have made that trade 100 times out of 100.
I will
still
say,
might, frankly.
I thought it was very funny. I saw a tweet today before the game, and it was like home run plus our stolen base leaderboards since July 1st, maybe. And Jake Berger was like the only one in the top 20 who didn't have a steal. He goes out and steals a base today. I thought that was very funny.
There you go. George Springer, he homered yet again. He listens to the podcast. We spoke ill of him 2 days ago. What happens? 3 home runs in 2 games since. And Luis Robert has had some big games recently. 2 for 3 with 2 steals over his last 6. He's got 10 hits, 2 homers, and 3 stolen bases. Some bullpen updates for the Orioles. Sir Anthony Dominguez got the 9th inning in a tie game. He gave up a walk-off homer to Jesse Winker. That is the second walk-off homer Dominguez has allowed this week. I just don't really know where else the Orioles can go.
Yeah, I mean, Kimbrel wasn't good in this one either.
He gave up a solo home run too. So he wasn't as wild like we've seen from him recently. Mm-hmm. I think what they want to happen is Kimbrel win his way back into the role, but he hasn't done it yet. And especially now that Dominguez doesn't look like he's going to get a stranglehold on the role, you know. Mm-hmm. I just made fun of myself for trading Jake Berger for Craig Kimbrel, but in roto leagues where saves are scarce, I'd still be holding on to Kimbrel, I think.
Yeah.
For the Red Sox, Kenley Jansen was unavailable. Chris Martin got the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. He picked up his first save. For the Rangers, Kirby Yates got the 9th inning with the game tied. He struck out 2. He earned the win because on the other side, David Bednar got the bottom of the 9th, game tied, gave up a run on 3 hits, took his 6th loss of the season. Derek Shelton recently came out and gave Bednar a vote of confidence, but Aroldis Chapman has been lights out in the second half. A .69 ERA, .46 whip, 20 strikeouts to just 2 walks over 13 innings.
Well, you can understand Derek Shelton giving Bednar a vote of confidence because this bad outing interrupted his scoreless streak of 2. So,
yep.
Yeah, he gives up runs more often than he doesn't, and I think a change to Chapman is about 2 weeks overdue at least. I don't know what Derek Shelton is thinking.
For the Phillies, Carlos Estevez got the ninth inning with a 1-run lead. He gave up a hit and a walk, but picked up his 22nd save. For the D-backs, Justin Martinez entered with 1 out in the 8th inning, a 1-run lead. Runner on second base. He struck out Xavier Edwards and then got Jake Berger to ground out. The D-backs tacked on a few more runs. Martinez came back out for the 9th inning. He did give up a run, but picked up his 5th save, and that was back-to-back games that Martinez worked. 46% rostered. He pretty much looks like the guy in Arizona. For the Brewers, Devin Williams was called upon to work back-to-back days again. This is the second time this has happened in the past week, even though they said this really wasn't going to happen. And he didn't look right. He gave up 2 runs on a hit and 3 walks and a hit by pitch. It was his first blown save. I know that they want to get guys out there and competitive spirit, and Devin Williams is one of the best in the game. There's no doubt. But do you think maybe they're pushing him too fast, too soon?
Well, especially because McGill's back. Came back in recent days. Piamps has been great.
But McGill was horrible.
He gave up the grand slam to Arenado. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No. I recognize that, but like it's just, it seems like, they could probably avoid the back-to-backs like that for Williams. And maybe this is a sign that they should, given his injury issue.
Yep. For the Royals, Lucas Ursig got the 9th inning with a 3-run lead. He struck out 2 for his 6th save. And overall, he's had a great season. 2.87 ERA, 102 whip, 34% rostered. It pretty much looks like Ursig is the top guy in Kansas City as well.
Yeah, however much they may have been leaning toward Hunter Harvey before the injury, I think he's been Wally pipped. I don't know if that's too grandiose of a term to use even, but I think Ursig is just the Royals closer now, and I feel kind of bad because you guys expressed some enthusiasm when the Royals acquired him, like he could be a closer candidate, and I batted it down. You know what? I have this. Lucas Ursig in my mind is still a Brewers third base prospect. Like he should not be a major league pitcher, much less a good one.
And like it's not like he just throws fastballs. He's got like a legit 4-pitch mix. It's kind of fascinating. You don't really see converted position players develop like a deep arsenal like that, especially a reliever. It's been a very impressive season from Lucas Ursig.
And I'm just seeing now that Tampa Bay had another save opportunity 2 days in a row. This time they went with Manuel Rodriguez, who pitched a clean 9th inning. He picked up his first save of the season.
Yes, but Edwin Uceta had worked 3 of the past 4 days. So my initial lean once Pete Fairbanks went on the IL is, okay, well, Manuel Rodriguez has been the 8th inning guy since they traded Jason Adams, so probably they'll default to him. But I mean, Uceta's numbers are so good.
So good.
0.90 ERA, 0.57 whip. It's insane. 10.8 K per 9. So he's despite Rodriguez getting the save in this one, Uceta's definitely the Rays reliever I would prefer to roster.
To stream or not to stream on Thursday, the clear most appealing option here is Jeffrey Springs at the Oakland A's. Spencer Arrighetti, he's had some big starts, but he's at Baltimore, so I'm not so sure. We get Osvaldo Bido up against Tampa Bay. Gavin Williams at the Yankees. Blah. What do you guys think?
Blah.
Springs, Bido. I could see Cal Quantrill having a good start against the Nationals, but I wouldn't want to use him. Springs is the only one I can recommend actively.
Yeah, Springs is definitely number 1. Number 2 for me, and I'm not excited to do it, but he might be number 2 by default, is Spencer Arrighetti at Baltimore.
Yep. And then on Friday, there are some mildly interesting names here. We have Albert Suarez, who gets the Astros. Ryan Nelson has pitched well, but it's in Boston, so I don't know about that. Brian Bayo gets the D-backs. We have Kader Montero at the White Sox. I feel like you can use anybody against the White Sox. David Festa gets the Cardinals. Savali is at Oakland. JP Sears gets the Brewers. And Hayden Birdsong at Seattle.
Some pitchers I don't really like at all with good matchups.
Yeah.
So I will say Aaron Savali has been throwing his sinker more since joining the Brewers, and his ground ball rate is up. It's not a very good ground ball rate, but it's not the very, very low ground ball rate it was with the Rays. And so maybe he can navigate that A's lineup okay, give you a quality start. That would probably be my second choice to cater Montero.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Kyle Hendricks at Miami.
I know Birdsong has been bad, but in Seattle,
Yeah, that's probably the highest upside option. And so if you're in a roto league with daily lineups and you really need strikeouts, Birdsong, I could absolutely see a 9 strikeout game.
All right, we are going to wrap there. For Scott and Chris, I am Frank. Thanks as always for tuning in to Fantasy Baseball today. Please make sure to follow and leave a 5-star rating on Apple and Spotify. I will be back again next week. These guys will be back again tomorrow. Bye-bye.